What's up, everybody? Brett Okamoto alongside DC and Marc Raimondi. We are in Toronto for UFC 297, and I got to say, man, it just warmed my heart. DC walked in here. He was so happy to see us, bro. Like, you missed us. You genuinely missed us.
Hold on. There's nothing warm about Toronto, guys. There's nothing warm about. I don't care if it's your heart, the weather. There's nothing warm about Canada right now. It is cold as you know what.
It is the most cold place I've been to in a long time. But what I do love is that regardless of how much time we spend away, when my hand is on your back, you're shaking. I love the fear that I instill in you, and it better stay for the rest of your life.
From the
you
weather.
See that? I love the fear that I instill in this guy. It better stay that way forever.
Well, DC missed us and the sport, man. I can just picture you on the couch, bored, waiting for the fights to come back. They're here, UFC 297. But before we talk briefly about that card, because we're going to be talking about it all week, we want to talk about UFC 300. Some news broke while I think all of us were on airplanes to Toronto yesterday. We got some new fights for UFC 300, one of which is a BMF title fight between Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway. I got to say, I'm not just saying this. I love this fight. I have thought about this fight before. I've even asked both these guys about this fight before. But when the news hit and I was kind of going through Instagram, I saw some people that did not like this fight. And I think the reason is they don't like it for Max Holloway, that everybody loves Max Holloway so much that they think this is not a good fight for Max Holloway. So I did want to get both of your guys' thoughts because that surprised me. That surprised me that anybody did not like this fight.
I think that people do feel like, oh, man, why is Max going up? Because Max is in a bit of a weird situation now in his division. But, hey, I was there when this fight was getting made. This fight started to get made in December.
We're 5 seconds into 2024, DC's bragging about what he's saying.
Me and Justin Gaethje were out on the golf course, and he was getting these calls, right? And the fight was wanting to be made early. He's like, nope, let's give it time. Let's figure it out. It's a fantastic fight. It's a fight that I like in terms of if I'm a fan, but as a friend of both guys, I don't love it. But it is what it is. It's for the BMF title, and who better, right? We had the Poirier versus Gaethje, and now we have Gaethje versus Holloway. It's a tremendous fight.
It fits. The bell fits right for either one of those guys. And it's funny because I interviewed Justin Gaethje in October of last year. And I asked him if he would defend the BMF title. And if he were to defend the title, who would be a worthy opponent? And he said begrudgingly Max Holloway. Not that he didn't deserve the title shot for the BMF, but because he doesn't want to punch Max Holloway. He likes Max Holloway.
Everybody loves
So he
Max.
didn't want to do it. So I posted that clip on social media, on Twitter. And who quote tweets it or whatever, quote posts it, whatever they're calling that now.
Quote Xing.
Quote Xing, whatever they're calling it now.
He quote X'd it.
So who quote tweets it? Max Holloway.
X'd it.
Quote X'd it. I'm not saying quote
you
XDC.
have to say it, bro.
I'm not
the way
saying
it
that.
is.
Whatever. So who replied to it? It was Max Holloway wanting that fight. So for the people who are saying, oh, this is a bad fight for Max Holloway, this is the fight that Max Holloway wanted. This is one that he called for. I think he's a 32-year-old man. He can make his own decisions.
He's a beast, man. Max Holloway's a beast. He's not afraid of anything. He just wants the best competition.
This is what you get when you come to ESPN MMA. Mark basically made the fight.
I mean,
about it.
And
DC
was there
was
when
there
it was
as
made.
it was being negotiated. Where else do you get this type of analysis?
You also said some stuff like, I thought that for the first time that was going to be a fight that shouldn't make sense. So, like, between the three of us, we were the
matchmakers. Sorry, Dana Hunter, Mick,
really
Sean. It was actually us who made the fight.
Well, I'll say this about, and I do get the people who are worried about Max Holloway for this fight because he's moving up in weight. Max was in a situation not that long ago where everybody was like, man, he's never going to get a title fight at 145, and he turned that around in 1 year. So I think Max is just so popular that no matter what happens in this fight, his standing is not, he's always just like one or two good things away from another great opportunity. So I just love the fight. I think it's a great fight. The other fight that was announced, Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. Jim Miller is going to be fighting at UFC 100, UFC 200, UFC 300. Can you talk about how freaking impossible that is to do if you're Jim Miller?
It's impossible. It's impossible for Jim Miller to have that type of staying power. And it's impossible for Jim Miller to not only still be fighting, but still winning. Jim Miller is winning fights at an advanced age, and now he gets to fight on another one of those centennial fight cards, which is amazing. If anyone deserves it, it is the Iron Man of mixed martial arts. That's what I call him now. That's a new nickname I've coined him. Remember when they used to call Cal Ripken the Iron Man of Major League Baseball? Yeah, he's like our Cal Ripken now. Right?
Another thing about
I am really good at this.
He's just nailing it.
That,
2020.
You're actually not very good at this, but that one's good. That one is good.
I'm really good at nicknames and everything. I started calling you Oko.
People were calling me Oko when I was in
and
middle
I called
school.
you Marundi.
That's true.
Yeah,
that goes way back. That goes way back.
I make up great names.
Jim Miller, Bobby Green. What do you think about the opponent?
I mean, I think that's a fantastic fight because it feels like both those guys should have fought each other already because they're both guys that are never really in title contention necessarily, but they're always going to give you great fights. They're always going to put everything out there. They've both been around for a long time, and it's a nice like veteran versus veteran, like almost a celebration of where the sport has been over the last 20 years or so.
I need Bobby Green to fight someone like Jim Miller too, because we just saw him fight one of the young guys.
Yeah.
And when he got that success that he had wanted for so long, and he beat Grant Dawson, and you thought, oh my goodness, maybe Bobby Green's gonna make his run. He fought in Austin, and he fought against who did he fight against in Austin?
Turner. Right.
Yeah,
Turner.
Jalen Turner,
Turner.
right, on short notice,
Yeah.
young, big, long. He got finished in that way. You want to see him take a step back and fight someone more on what is, a celebration of mixed martial arts. It's amazing.
At least his age, because look, Jim Miller is still, as you said, doing pretty well.
Dude is like 41 years old.
Finishes
I'm telling you
all
what,
5 of those fights.
I'm telling you what, if I got like plus 800 for Jim Miller fighting at UFC 400, I might take that bet. I might lay down a $10 bet.
At 41, when I fought Stipe, they wheeled me out to the octagon.
That was you, man. I'm talking about Jim Miller.
I was at 41. I'm telling you how hard it is.
Last thing about UFC 300, I'll ask you just because, of course, we're going to be talking about that card a lot in the coming months as well. Which of the storylines interests you the most outside of the two that we just talked about? I mean, you've got Charles Oliveira and Arman Zaroukian. Bo Nickel is going to be his because Bo Nickel wrestles, so we already know what DC's is. And then Aljamain going up to 145 to fight Calvin Kattar. Of course, you got the female fight, the female title fight at strawweight in the co-main event. Which one stands out to you? I'll let you go first.
I'll be honest. Love the China versus China fight. Wish that happened in China. But for me, it's about Charles Oliveira and Arman Sarukian. Because for the first time in a long time, it feels like this division is moving in a direction where all those guys that have been essentially the protectors of the top 5 are saying we will fight this next generation of lightweight. Can those guys break into that top 5? Can they break up that quad of Poirier, Gaethje, Chandler? Makhachev never really got a chance.
Yeah.
He went as close to the top 5 as he could, then he became champion. Now can these guys do the same thing? Because for a while, those guys never would even
You've seen
fight
it coming
them.
for years, right?
You saw it coming.
You've seen it coming, but it hasn't
fight him,
happened.
Right? They wouldn't fight him. It was like Dustin, you'd offer Dustin to Arman Sarukian, he'd be like, what?
Why?
Are you crazy? Why? Or Charles. Now those guys are saying, okay, we'll fight these guys. Let's see what happens.
DC took what my pick would have been. That would have been the fight in Charles's kind of path. But I'll say I think that there's these weird, unfair expectations that have been put on UFC 300, and maybe part of that is internal with the UFC as well. But I feel like every time Dana White announces something, fans are upset. Like they're not meeting the standard of what it should be, and I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy. This is a tremendous card. I think it has like 6 or 7 current or former UFC champions on it already, right? You have Charles Oliveira, Aljamain Sterling, you have Weili Zhang, you have Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. Look, for what is available for UFC 300 on April 13th in Las Vegas, for what is available, this is the best that the UFC can put together. Prime Fedor is not fighting Brock Lesnar on that card. Who do fans want? Khabib versus GSP? I don't understand what is the fight that the UFC is not delivering.
An attraction. They want an attraction.
But who is the
They
attraction?
just wanted an attraction. They wanted an attraction. UFC 100, you had Brock. UFC 200, you had Brock. Like, it felt big when we were going to fight Amanda and me and Jones and Aldo. But when Brock got put on that card, something changed. Everything changed, and that's what they feel.
But there's nobody out there, right?
I'm just
they threw in Anderson Silva at the last minute, as you remember.
Did, right? I fought Anderson, but like Khabib would be the only one that's actually a real possibility for them to chase down that's been gone. That could be brought back.
But how realistic is that really?
I don't know how realistic it is, but I'm trying to tell you why the fans, because I'm a fan. You're not a fan. I'm a fan of the sport.
I'm not a fan of the sport.
Well, if you can't understand why there's the frustration, if you can't understand why there's the frustration, then you're not a fan.
Look at that. It's a good card.
It's a great card.
Excellent card.
It's a great card. But I think what these people are getting at is that they want to feel like they're watching something they could never see.
For sure.
Until another.
And I understand that. And I understand that. But where is that coming from?
Spoiledness. The UFC's giving too much.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I will say this about 300. I think that because I think you're right. The fans have been, kind of waiting for that big announcement. I think by the time the card comes around, that will change. I think there's a little bit of like like trepidation with these announcements, but once the card is actually here, I think
It's
they'll
a
be
great
excited for it.
card.
And
Garbrandt versus Davison Figueiredo, this
if
is a
Conor
freaking good
McGregor
card.
and Michael Chandler is officially announced and they know that they're getting that for the summer, then it's like, oh, okay, no. Now it's like it's great to be an MMA fan because we got UFC 300 and we got Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor, so that feeling will go away.